All right. So for our final 2024 Oscar nominee review, let's finally, after 6 to 7 months of being patient and hearing people gush over why this movie was so amazing and saw it in theaters, let me finally talk about The Boy and the Heron.
Right.
It took us a year, like it literally felt like a year we had to wait just to talk about this damn movie, right? But yeah, just to get out the way though, as much as I enjoyed watching it in the comfort of my house, no mind rain was pouring out hard and whatnot while I was watching it. Boy, I wish I could have seen this in theaters. Reason being is because, if I'm not mistaken, this is probably, I saying probably because I'm not sure at the moment, Hayao Miyazaki's final film.
Well, she said that, well, you didn't say that in the last movie.
That's what I was reminded of. Yeah, he said that, right? But then, also too, I've never seen a Miyazaki film theatrically. I've never seen that. Right? It's just usually I see it on cable or like after the fact, I'll just download it and watch it, right? So just to kick things off, right? Because well, you want to do the synopsis or you want me to do it?
Hey, you could go ahead. I mean, if
All
you
right,
want.
I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. Right.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, when it comes to Miyazaki, right? I mean, hands on, one of the greatest um animators of all time, right? When it comes to not just in anime, but just period, right? Just the imagination that he puts into his films, right? They're just so, it's incredibly weird, but it's so vibrant and amazing, you know what I mean? Just spectacular and, breathtaking and all these terms, right? But there's always like an emotional center to all these things, right? So
Right.
yes, there will be weird characters, you know what I mean? There will be frightening imagery ever so often, right? But there's always something heartfelt, something emotional, something that always creeps up behind you and just, you know what I mean? Get the man tears out of you or just punches in your gut, right? That's what his films do, right? But I will confess, I have not seen all of his films, right? One day I should really like sit down and like seek out all of his films. I guess it's because I don't know, like I just feel like it's a lot. Like I know it's not a lot of films, right? But I just feel like there's a lot of films, like just like a large amount of films to cover when it comes to Miyazaki, right? So the ones that I've seen, Princess Mononoke, which for me is like top three when it comes to just anime. I just absolutely love that film. I
Right.
saw that on
Classic.
Stars. I saw the English dub of it. I love the English dub of it, by the way.
Mm.
Keith David and Gillian Anderson killed it. You know what I mean? In their
Right.
roles, I love it. Um, I saw Spirited Away when it came out on Stars as well too. Like I was just hearing the hype surrounding that movie, right? And of course, we didn't get to see it theatrically in Trinidad, right? But yeah, when it dropped on Stars, I'll watch it. But you see, like how Mononoke wrote me, like Mononoke wrote me in from the first view, right? And I fell in love. Spirited Away, I had to watch it about 2, 3 times, and I was like, right, that's okay
Right.
now again, right? Because yeah, it was weird though, but it was weird in a great way. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was a great film. My Neighbor Totoro. I was like, you know what I
Right.
mean? I still haven't watched this film. Like everybody talk about the film. I sit down and watch, like, yeah, this is real cool, and the weird characters and shit. The cat bus and all these weird stuff, and Totoro is just this cute creature. You know what I mean? It was weird, but I love it. It's just a great film, right? But again, have not seen all of his films, right? And I'll say the same thing with Studio Ghibli, right? You know, what I mean, still haven't seen all of the feature films, right? I know I suck, right? But yeah, one of these days I should really like sit down and be like, oh, this show, that show, that show, that show, right? Okay, yeah, there's a lot that they've put out that I need to watch, right? So when it comes to The Boy and the Heron, right? I was hearing about this like near the end of 2023, right? Of course, people saw it theatrically. Fun fact, something I didn't even know prior to watching this, right? The title itself, right? Well, the original title is actually "How Do You Live?" That was the Japanese version of it, right? But when it was marketed to the States, it was called The Boy and the Heron. So I always thought it
Right.
was Boy and the Heron. Is after the fact I found out it's How Do You Live, right? Also, this show was not advertised. It was not marketed in Japan, and yet it was a relatively huge success, right? And I guess
Yeah.
it's because of it's Miyazaki, it's Ghibli, right? So of course people gonna support that shit, right? And then of course, well, yeah, right. What surprised me, well, kind of surprising and not surprising, was when it got nominated for Best Animated Feature. What surprised me, however, was when it won because I was rooting for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse to win, right? I remember
Right.
we talked about that after the fact, like, yeah, but it's a Miyazaki film, though, so you know what I mean? So it's like that. A Miyazaki film had to win over Spider-Man. I'll never forget. Of course, is Shamik Moore, I believe his name is the voice actor for Miles. Like he kind of did this weird sort of like mini rant on X, talk about, oh, Across the Spider first lost, blah 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 blah, right? But then afterwards he's like, you know what, Boy in Heron, Miyazaki, OG.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
right, I'm sorry, right?
Right.
But yeah, but for me, just to wrap things up, when that movie won, I was like, all right, but dog, why does we still haven't seen, right? And I don't know, like I'm not going to go into detail or try to analyze why, but yeah, it just sucks that a guy who should be up there with the Steven Spielbergs and the Martin Scorsese's and whatnot, right? When it comes to just cinematic wonders, right? Just amazing feature films, just great films in general, right? Just so imaginative. Yeah, we only see these things on cable. We have to torrent these things and see them online, right? We can't see these films theatrically, and that sucks, right? I know ever so often we will get like an anime film, in theaters, but they'll be poorly promoted to the point that you wouldn't even know they out, right, to begin with. Or they might have to be related to some big, franchise like say Demon Slayer or something like that, right? But it sucks too. Like a Hayao Miyazaki film, still can't see this theatrically, right? And yet a lot of people saw the Boy and the Heron, loved it so much, put it in the best of, and I did like, where my chance to see it, right? Where am I gonna see this, right? So yeah, finally after weeks, sorry, I'm saying weeks, right? Months of waiting, yeah, it finally came out, right? But yeah, as I prepare to do the synopsis, yeah, Ricardo, your thoughts on uh Miyazaki's work?
Yeah, I mean, he's somebody who he's a legend, but like because I'm not like emotionally connected to him, I get it. I'm a Jinju kind of person anyway, so it's that. But yeah, he is the great. He's a classic. I always think of oh gosh, probably my favorite of his is probably not I wanna say Porco Rosso is his. That's it.
Yes,
Yeah, one of
yes,
his. Yeah,
yes.
Porco. Yeah, yeah. Like stuff like Porco Rosso is like one of my favorite of his. It's like this kind of stuff. Like it's
Right.
just about more these degrees grounded conceits, but it have this one very fucking weird thing in it. um,
Well, in that case, it was a pig who was a pilot or some sort.
right, and well,
Yeah,
and you're not sure, like how it's framed as this was like yeah, he's a pig, but like you don't know what the metaphor is. Is a metaphor, maybe not sure, right? It's one of those, right? He's cursed, so they have like this in-universe magic for it. Or like I rate Howl very high as well. Not
yeah.
not
I
a
know how came out in on cable, but
right,
all right, for the life of me, it's one of those shows like I have to remember if I saw it. Like maybe I
right,
saw it, but I forgot about it. Shame on me, I know. But yeah, it's one of those shows like if I did see it, I should really rewatch, right? Or I should just
right.
say watch in general because I know how great that movie was. Yeah,
Right, and yeah, he's a titan of the franchise, the industry, and the art form in almost every way. Um, and he's this that's it. But I never, because I'm not connected to it in that same sense in terms of the culture. Even though I like anime a lot, you would think that I like him a lot, but everything around him I like. Like he's that person. Like it's like, oh, this was influenced by Miyazaki. That was Miyazaki. This is Miyazaki. But not he himself or his particular works truly stick with me. Like I don't like I love Princess Mononoke, but I don't revisit it all the time. Like I just know, you put it on the shelf as this great piece of art, but for whatever reason, it just never connect to me. I didn't say like it speak to me or anything like that. I get it, but it's just more. This is just impressive on a technical level. You're more thinking it like that. And it's a good story. Was the one with the witch flying ices as well, right?
what is
Delivery service.
Kiki's yeah, delivery service or
Kiki's delivery
magical
service.
delivery service?
Ices,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right,
Still
right.
haven't
Stuff
seen
like that.
that. I know.
No, yeah, no.
I
Like I
suck.
get it, but it's one of
I
those things.
suck, boy. Wow, I suck.
No, it's one of those things that is just iconically it's there, but you're not thinking. It's like Star Wars, I get it. Like I get why it's this is super popular, but I'm not into it on its own. But a whole bunch of shit around it that comes from it, or at least it brought back into the popular conscious. I'm more into. It's one of those things, and that's how I always feel about his work. Like truly a titan of the industry, not denying that. By all accounts, the greats. But it's he I just never get into in his material on its own. conceit, even though I like these films and whatever it is. So I can't consider myself a super fan or anything like that in any workable sense. With that said, he's a guy who just, you know, from what I understand, he's one of those guys that he's a kind of antagonistic, hopeful person. Like from what I understand, he himself is quite miserable. But at least all the popular memes will tell you he himself is quite miserable. You can find that famous internet meme, anime was a mistake. I don't think he actually said that, but it's that aspect of what he seems to represent as opposed to what is said as an art form in his own way as an artist. And it's an interesting dynamic of what I'll take or not take going forward. But yeah, as it is, icon titan in the industry, but somebody who just never personally latched onto myself. That's about it.
Yeah. So let me attempt to explain, or at least give a run through of what Boy and Heron is about, right? I saw it a day ago, so let me do my best, right? So it's set back in the 40s, right? I believe this is during the Pacific War, right? We're introduced to Mahito. He's the protagonist, right? And it's established early on that his mother, who works at his hospital, she died when the hospital was on fire, right? So his father, Soichi, right? He's into air munitions, right? He carries, well, pretty much they pretty much move now to this estate, right, where he's running his business, right? He also married, well, his late wife's sister, Natsuko, right? So basically, in a spiritual way, kind of way, it's just like the summer, right? At this new place, and Mahito is kind of like learning, just how things work and whatnot. He's introduced to Natsuko's well, basically it's just like a group of old women. Technically, they meet, but this guy is there to help her around and whatnot, right? Because it's revealed that she's pregnant, so she needs help and whatnot, right? So while he's there and kind of getting used to things, he spots this gray heron, right? But then this heron kind of follow him all over the place. There's one moment where the heron talks to him, right? And pretty much says, "Oh, you want to find your mother? Just follow me," right? And some weird stuff take place, right? And from there, when he actually runs into the gray heron again, and we kind of see what the actual identity of the heron is. Yeah, this leads him into this dimension where he's introduced to a bunch of weird characters, and they kind of do something here in the show where and it's kind of like a team that is set up here too, at least from how I see it, right? Reincarnation, the idea that somebody could be in one body, but then go into another world and be in somebody else's, right? Or in the case of some characters, they could be young in one dimension, but they could be older in another dimension, right? And this, of course, means like the real world, right? Or at least the world where Mahito comes from, right? And yeah, basically, it starts off as this journey into finding his mom, but then actually what happens, it kind of leads into a search for Natsuko because she herself disappears and she's still pregnant at the time too, right? So it just leads into this really wild and crazy and unique, but really extraordinary and emotionally heartfelt adventure, right? So for me, right, I totally understand. This just getting the puzzle away, right? I totally understand why this movie won Best Animated Feature, right? I don't think it's because it may or may not be Miyazaki's final film, right? But it's because even though I am not familiar with all of his work, right? You could see like elements from, well, the films that I mentioned that I saw, that would be like Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke, sorry. But it also feels a lot more personal. Like, he's drawing from the best. He's drawing from the films that he came up with, the worlds he came up with, the characters, the teams, and all that kind of stuff. They all seem to kind of coexist in this show here, right? And yet somehow he finds ways to just make this feel so original, so fresh and whatnot, right? This is a truly, truly unique film. Like, I've never seen a film like this before, right? I imagine people who are versed in all things Miyazaki will see the same thing about it, right? Yes, there are a few characters and creatures that, will remind you of Spirited Away. They will remind you of Princess Mononoke. They will remind you of other shows that they did, right? But it still feels unique though. Even though thematically, I know that he covers certain ground, when it comes to well, actually, like, I didn't know this till after the fact. Actually, his mom did pass away. I'm not sure if it was in a fire. I don't know. Somebody could comment and let me know. But there's the idea of family and, like, holding on to tradition, being the best or wanting to be, to live the best life you could. You know what I mean? Being true to your family and to your own identity, stuff like that, right? I know Miyazaki explored before, but here it still feels different. It still feels like something that you've never seen before, right? Visually, as you'd expect from a Studio Ghibli film, this looks magnificent. Just gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous imagery throughout, though. Just so strange and unique, though. And this, in terms of just the side characters, the creatures themselves, right? Whether it's the heron himself or other birds, like, all right, so they have like these parakeets as well, and they in this world, they have an army and whatnot. I'll talk about voice acting in a bit, right? Just that in itself is just so strange way, but somehow, some way, it actually works, right? Um, I also do love the how the show takes its time in telling its story, right? So I've always said this when it comes to directors and screenwriters when they get older, right? So I'll throw a perfect example. Akira Kurosawa, right? When he made Dreams back in 1990, right? Still one of my all-time favorite movies from Kurosawa, right? This was him in his 80s, like I think he turned 80, right? And it's just this free flowing, free form kind of anthology approach to just subject matter that he just had on his mind for years, right? But in this case, he not doing a film about samurai or detectives or whatnot. It's just stuff that he thinks about. He was thinking about all his life, and now that he's older now, and time move a little slower now. It's like, yeah, I kind of thinking about this stuff now. You know what I mean? This is how I feel right now. So I take my time and tell him a story the way how I want to, right? Because I'm being reflective now, right?
Yeah.
So I picked up on that in The Boy and the Heron. I will admit though, it does take a while to get, like I would say, like when it comes to like a Miyazaki film, it's just okay, we want to get into the weirdness, we want to go into the new world, we want to see the weird stuff quickly, right? But this show like surprisingly take its time though. Like it just sort of move at this sort of even pace. It was building the world and whatnot. And then when they drop it into the world, it's like, all right, insanity ensues from this point on, strapping, hold on, right? So it's like that, right? But I actually admire the fact that he took his time and told his story, right? The movie is pretty long. It's about 2 hours though, but I still like how it just sort of took its time and how the story flowed and whatnot, right? That being said though, it is a show that is admittedly confounded, right? There's a few this I don't want to say a few, there's certain elements about the show and certain uh story arcs and beats and whatnot that I don't want to say don't make sense, but it just feels like if I watch the show again, I will understand what's going on, right? I will
Right.
confess though, I felt there were a few moments where they sort of rushed to get to the end of the story, especially that too. Like I felt like they just sort of rush a few things a little bit. Like, okay, well, we could stop and explain the character motivation here, or we could explain why this character wants this person to do this for them. But it's like, now we need to wrap it up. So let me just move and, build tension here. And it just kind of moves a little quickly there. So I just felt like show, even though it was taking its time earlier on, it could still do that near the end, even though they threw all this weird stuff at you, right? And yeah, it is weird. Like it's one of those things where you accept the weirdness fit because it's a Miyazaki film, but at the same time, it's like, all right, how much of this should I really take seriously, right? And that leads to the whole parakeet army thing that caught me by surprise, right?
Right.
I should mention the voice actor in this too, because I actually watched the English dub of it. I actually
Okay.
really dug the English dub. I will watch the Japanese dub though. See, because it's the same thing I did with Princess Mononoke. I watched the English dub first, and then I watched the Japanese dub after that, right? But yeah, I was reminded of certain people who were doing the voices in this. And I was actually shocked. So case in point, the Grey Heron is played by Robert Pattinson.
Right. I knew that.
And
Yeah.
when you hear
Yeah.
the voice though, it is so weird. It's like, no, that come out a Batman voice? Like Batman?
Yeah.
You? You know what I mean? I picked up on Christian Bale. He
Right.
played Mojito's father. Like once I heard the voice, I was like,
Yeah.
all right,
So
I know
we,
you.
we
I know
get
you.
two Batmans at the same time.
Yeah, two Batmans at the same time, right?
Right,
McGill.
that's an extra funny joke because of who voiced that. It's another man. Whatever.
Yeah. I got
I
that.
have layers to the joke. Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard McGill Florence Pugh. She plays the character
Right. I know
Kiriko,
she was
right?
in.
I forgot she was in it, but when I saw the name, I was like, oh right, he was in this, right? But next girl, Karen Fukuhara was there as well. It's like, hey, Lady Himi, that's her name, right?
Yeah.
But what surprised me though, I kind of had a laughing, but the moment I heard the voice, I knew who it was. Yeah, Dave Bautista was in this, and he played the Parakeet King. When I heard the voice, I was like, yeah, that's Batista. He doing the same kind of stoic voice like he doing Dune. That's the voice that he doing that voice. But just that character alone is just the whole parakeet moments though is so weird though, you know what I mean? But that's how the show is, right? But at the end of the day, right? Like the Boy and the Heron, while I really do enjoy it though, is one of those shows that I just find myself really admiring though. Like for all the weirdness and how bizarre certain things are, you could tell though that Miyazaki really put his heart into it, right? And he really put a lot of time and care into it. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel half-assed at all. Even when things are just weird for the sake of being weird, they feel really thought out. Like, okay, this is what I want, but in this world, it's gonna make sense, kinda. But even if it doesn't, just roll with it because of fantasy. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a sort of a weird working logic to everything that you
Yeah, I
see
mean,
there,
it's
even
like
though
with
stuff won't really make the you
oh
know.
gosh, it's like with same thing with when oh gosh, the one with the oh gosh, it's like never mind, the one with the dead girl where she died. Oh
Um,
oh gosh, it's a world. It's like
oh
okay, it have
gosh,
a
oh
world
gosh.
and there's the whole weird logic to it, and or Ponyo or something like that.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
Ponyo, right,
yeah,
yeah, something, right, yeah. Um, Yeah, but again, you know what I mean? It's just a lot of it's just a lot of care that's put into it. That's what I really admire
right,
from it, right? Even though I don't know Miyazaki's, backstory and whatnot, I know that there are things in it that are very near dear to him, very personal, right? I can understand that, right? But even with its weirdness, it's still a captivating story. It still keeps you engaged with what's going on. Even though, like I was saying before, you came in with the audio stuff. There are a few moments that'll just be like, okay, I genuinely don't understand this. Like, okay, like visually, I kind of get it, but like, nah, I just feel like I need to rewatch this film, right? And that's in closing. This is one thing out of everything that I really admire about the show, though. Oh, it just kind of boldly and bravely says, yes, this is a show. It's kind of weird. Some of it wouldn't really make any sense, but
right,
this is my show. And if you're watching again, you could probably make your own logic out of it, and maybe it'll make sense to you the 3, 4 times that you watch, right? So for me, it kind of feels like Spirited Away all over again. Like the first time I
right.
see it, I admired it, I really enjoyed it, but I didn't get everything. But like the more I see, the more I was like, oh, okay. And even with the weird stuff, it still makes sense in a Miyazaki kind of way. That's how I felt with stuff like but it's okay, I got the gist. Like right out the gate, I got the gist of everything, right? This one feels like okay, if I watch it 2, 3 more times, all right, okay, now I'll get it, right? The praise is rightfully deserved though. This is yeah, like just outstanding, feat when it comes to animation, right? And again, just the imagination put on screen though is amazing, right? But it sucks though that I did not get to see it theatrically. Like I feel if I saw it theatrically, like I just heard the sound just blasted off some cinema speakers or whatnot, I would be praising the show as much as a lot of people did when they saw it in cinema, right? By watching home, I was like, yeah, I enjoyed it. I actually will say that I did kind of love it too, but I just felt left out. Like I felt like okay, the hype is gone now, so like I now see like yeah, it was great, but people not really gonna be talking about the show because they done praise the show since it well even right up to when it won the Oscar, right? So it's like it's like we reach late to the party, right? I mean the party's still good, but we reach late to the party, unfortunately,
Right.
man. You know what I mean? But still, I admired it. I really enjoyed it. I kind of love it. But I really do feel like if I watch it 2, 3 more times, yeah, I could put it up there as one of his best works, right? But for me personally, right, I really do need to watch more of Miyazaki's films, right? And I will say that if you are a first timer to Miyazaki's work, don't start with this movie,
Right.
because you will come out of this like this. You'll admire it, you'll really enjoy it, but you won't understand a single thing that's going on, right? But I would say familiarize with yourself with at least a few of his works so you get a gist of his style and how he approaches the writing and whatnot. And then you could jump into this one. You're like, oh, okay, I get it now and whatnot, right? But for me personally, I feel like I really do need to sit down and watch more of his films. I mean, I might not be time to watch all of his films. Maybe I will in this lifetime, hopefully. But I feel like if I just watch a few more films and then jump back into this, I'll be like, okay, now I get it, right? But yeah, for what it's worth, I still think that it totally works. It would have been my best of, for last year. But after the fact, though, strong 4 out of 5. If you're a Miyazaki fan, absolutely. I mean, if you haven't seen it, really do check it out. If you're an anime fan, check it out. If you know about Miyazaki's films and you know what to expect when you jump into this. But again, if you are a first timer to his work, this is not the best place to start. Though I would say go back to Totoro or Mononoke or Spirited Away or Howl's Moving Castle, like the stuff from like the 80s up to the 2000s. I recommend that you check out first and then jump into this one. So Ricardo, I know you saw the show a long while back before me, but from what you
Yeah,
remember,
I
yeah,
kind of
what were
forget.
your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I remember liking it, but again, it's the same. This I love it for its art, but I'm not connecting to it, in any meaningful sense. It's just a little too out there, and I don't want to say weird in a dismissive sense, but it's that, right? Like I'm not getting like what they're supposed to be saying about something, and I just getting the surface level of what the story trying to say. And I think the mistake I make is the dub. One, the dub. This feel very distracting, and there's almost always CDs in terms of the dub. Actually, like the thing is, I never really go to a movie to like sit down with Miyazaki films in probably its original Japanese and sit down with it and say, all right, let me see what exactly is trying to be said, other than the surface stuff, because it just feels like they feel like really well made children's books. Like they're smart and they have really introspective things to say, but they're not deep. Well, you could say deep, but like it's kind of like I look at Miyazaki somewhere like a kind of equivalent of like a Roald Dahl or something like that, where it's on the surface and you could understand why it's so iconic and impactful, but I'm not gonna like super like it have something to super deep to say. I'm not capable of. I won't say capable, but like I don't have a literary degree to sit down and get into some super depth thing or say I'm feeling it in some way. It ain't for me, right? In that sense. And I always feel about it. Yeah, this was kind of the same of that. Like it's like, okay, not as good as Princess Mononoke, not his best, but still good and decent ideas. And look, the visuals are as usual blowing you away and all of that stuff. But I didn't rope me in as most of the others did. So that's how I feel about it. I don't know. Again, I hate to be like this guy about this, but it's one of these super popular things that just passed me because again, much like with Star Wars, like it's only by sheer osmosis that I'm familiar with these things.
Yeah, but couple of things though. First, what would you rate the show? Just off your first view.
Yeah, no, it still gets like again because of its sheer technical acumen and how well done it is and so on. So yeah, it still gets a very high score. I give it like a 8 and probably even a 9 out of 10. But I could only judge it. I feel I only judge it from a purely academic standpoint. Like I don't connect it in any personal or emotional, directly emotional sense. I don't know. It's just me. Maybe I'm too dumb for it. That's just
Well, I wouldn't say that, right? But secondly, I think what we should do is again just seek out more of his films, like just
yeah.
really
No, like
truly
I
get
think
a
I've
gist of like his not so much his art style, but just the themes that he explores in his films, right?
right. Yeah.
Connective
Like
tissue, so to speak, right? Like that.
I get that. I get their teams here. Like I get what they're trying to say and what they're like. I seen it. It's just because it don't flow and connect the way it should. It's not for me in that way. Like I should. Like it's same thing with like a lot of music. Like I have a lot of music that's very deep. Like okay, somebody like Mark DeMarco, and I found a Mark DeMarco. Even though I get how influential and powerful he is, and how yeah, not fun. It just don't work for me. And I'm not trying to be this dismissive, Peter from Family Guy thing or anything like that, right? It insists upon itself. It's not that. It's just for whatever reason, this thing just to connect in the way it should. Like again, I'll probably have to sit down in a quiet thing when I get enough money. I'll probably like just rent out a theater or something like that, or just like sit in my room super quiet and just be meditative about it and watch these man's films. But I never did that. I just watch them. I see them on cable. I sit down with them. I'm familiar with them. They're great, but I do connect with them. And it's not like I had a rant or anything like that. It's just like, all right, cool. This is great, nice. But
Yeah, yeah, I
I don't
understand.
find myself thinking about them or having to revisit them or like it stick on my mind like other shows or movies. Even stuff that I find dumber. or I'll put quote unquote less than this in terms of the art, quote unquote, I put in nine quote. I still think about more than his film. For some reason, I just don't think about his films. Other than Porco Rosso. Porco Rosso is the only one I think about a lot, surprisingly, like at least relatively compared to the others. I don't know. It's just me.
Yeah. Well. Just before we move on, right? I feel this is just one of the drawbacks, or just one of the aspects of just being an author. I think this is just really the author
All right.
aspect of things, right? Where you have a certain style, people go into your films expecting this one thing, right? So, they come in expecting this, right? And when they get something else, it's like, okay. It's almost like they kind of, it's almost like we as viewers expect them to do pretty much the same style over and over and over, right? So, I'll try an example. This is going back to Akira Kurosawa again, right? So even though there are some films from him that I absolutely love, right, that really connect with me, I kind of call myself a pure Akira Kurosawa fan, right? To the point that
Right.
I love every single thing this guy made. Right? I haven't seen all of his films, right? But there were a few films that I saw that didn't stick with me, right? So case in point, Kagemusha, right? That didn't stick with me, even though people have it there as one of the best things he ever did. I thought his follow up Ran from
Right.
1985. I absolutely love that film. That connect with me such a deep way, right? The point is when it comes to a guy like Miyazaki, right? Who is an author, right? And really carved like this decades long run when it comes to films, right? Yeah, you know what I mean? Like you just feel like you just had to know more about the guy and know more about the motivations behind the films to really, really get certain films, right? Certain movies. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like a Kurosawa, some of them will stick with you, some of them won't, right? So I feel it's the
Right.
same way with Miyazaki. Some films stick with you, some of them just don't, right? So it's like that. And that's fine, so not everybody should love and praise the boy and the heron, but uh, just to wrap things up, I feel the whole last movie thing that kind of have people like,
Right.
boy, but this could be the last film, boy.
I don't know. I mean, like,
It's
I
like
think
that
because
now.
the thing is, it have other people who like this totally stick with me in terms of the art. Like, number one probably Kentaro Miura, right? He's the creator of Berserk. Love that dude.
Right. Mm.
Stick with me. Constantly think about Berserk, how the art form is, the ideas, the concepts. I suppose it's just the shock value and the edginess of it, at least at the time. That's how it felt. So that's just me. But even like something like even Taite Kubo, right? Or Junji Ito, right? They just stick with me. Like I could just say, oh yes, right, that type of art. But for some reason, Miyazaki is that, and I don't know if it's because he's framed a certain way. Like a lot of people kind of compare him. Like I compare him to thing earlier, but it's more like a Disney maybe, or I'm not sure. Like it's something I don't know what it is about it. I don't know if like in the back of my head, I'm wondering if I've been too much of a hipster here with this now, and trying to not be oh well, that too popular or something like that. I'm not sure. But
You
for
know,
whatever
you know,
reason,
you
it's
know, I feel it is so sorry to cut you there. Do I feel it is? I feel like it's more of a traditional, this is the term that just keep popping up, right? Traditional. He has his own traditional way of doing things. So like when you
right.
sit down to watch these films, you're watching a Miyazaki film. Look, right down to the way how the characters, like the young male characters look. They look almost the same, like just the design and everything like that, right? There's a traditional way how he does things, how he tells stories, right? So even when he's doing something weird and throwing something a little different, it's still in a traditional Miyazaki kind of way, right? So it's like that, right? I don't want to call it formula. I just see it as more, this is just how he makes things, right? So it's a matter of if a film with this style sticks with you or doesn't. I feel that that's how it is, right? So it's a more of a traditional kind of way. So compare that to somebody like Scorsese, who always finds ways to kind of up what he does or do something a little bit different, right? Even though he is, in his 80s as well, right? So he'll always find some kind of way to keep with the times and whatnot, right? But like with Miyazaki, it still kind of feels traditional. It still feels kind of old school, which is fine,
Well,
you know what I mean? So
I don't know if
I
it's
don't know
that.
if that's the issue.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's that, but I don't know if it's just everything too nice with his stories. Sometimes I'm not sure, but with his stories, it get dark. I mean, they're not dark like say, what do you call it, what do you call it, Boy, Grieve the Fireflies or anything like that,
Oh, no, 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 God.
or what's the other one, Barefoot Jen or anything
Yeah,
like
but for
that. But
Jen.
like, right, but it's still, I don't know. It's something about it that don't sit with me. Not that it don't sit with me. It's just I just never really like latch onto it like other people did. Oh, well, moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
That waste my time on this introspection.
Yeah, but again, this is the final Oscar nominee for this year. We'll talk about, though. I mean, better late than never, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's finally out digitally, and I would say seek it out, man. So seek it out. Even if you come out of it like, yeah, I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. You know what I mean? But still see it, man, because it is worth your time nonetheless.
Yeah,